Last week, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the Trump administration in their challenge to nationwide injunctions. In a 6-3 decision, the court said that federal district court judges do not have authority to issue nationwide injunctions that stop a president's executive order from going into effect. The case involved national injunctions issued by several judges in response to lawsuits challenging President Trump's executive order ending birthright citizenship. The court did not address the issue of birthright citizenship itself, but is expected to hear arguments on that issue in October. So what is the impact of the court's decision ending national injunctions? What are the arguments that both are for and against birthright citizenship? And what should we expect when the court rules on the issue? So here to discuss it all, we have attorney Matthew Hoffmann with Battle-Born Injury Lawyers. Matt, thanks so much, as always, for joining us. This is one where I think people kind of got it confused. A lot of people thought that this particular situation was about the birthright citizenship. But as we mentioned, this is about those national injunctions. President Trump does not want them anymore, and it looks like they're done away with. So what do you think is going to happen now?
Yeah, it's interesting with the national injunction issue that this is the only thing the court looked at. And they were just asked not to rule on the birthright citizenship, not yet. And they just said, does a single district court judge have the power to stop a presidential, executive order? And obviously the Supreme Court said, no, they don't. And they said what a district court judge has the power to do is to grant relief to the parties before them. So the takeaway would be, okay, so now what? You're going to have 100,000 lawsuits for everybody that could, be harmed by an executive order? Well, what the court hinted at is no, not necessarily. They said you can grant an injunction to a whole lot of people. That's if there's a class action. And I think that's what the takeaway and what you're going to see is that when you have groups of people that have a similar potential injury, in this case with birthright citizenship, there's a lot of people that could be affected and have standing to sue. You have somebody sue on behalf of a class, and you ask for class, certification. And then you can ask for it on an expedited basis. And then a judge can say, look, all current and prospective members of the class, you are protected. I hereby enjoin that executive order. And it really has the same force and effect as a national injunction. It just is limited to the people that could be in the class or are in the class. It'll be a little slower process, but I think that's what you're going to see people do, the legal maneuver.
All right, so at least they have some recourse there for folks who want to make sure that this stays a national situation. Let's talk about birthright citizenship itself. President Trump is saying that he believes that the 14th Amendment is not calling for any and everyone who has a child who's born here in the country to actually become U.S. citizens. He's saying that that was intended for the children of slaves and that it should stay that way. What do you say?
Yeah, I mean, he's not wrong in that the original intent of the 14th Amendment was in response to, it was during the rebuilding process after the Civil War, the Reconstruction era, 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment. And the 14th was trying to undo the Dred Scott decision, which was terrible, and said that, freed slaves, their children, none of them could ever be citizens. So that was the impetus for it. But then the Supreme Court, back in 1898, I think, had this decision involving somebody that was born in the United States. The parents were Chinese nationals, and he left to go visit his parents. And when he returned, they wouldn't give him entry. They said, you're not a citizen. And but the key in that case was that both of his parents, while they were in the United States, were permanent legal residents, not temporary. And this executive order, what it's doing is saying, look, I'm not arguing the 14th Amendment is invalid. We're saying it's been misinterpreted for 125 years. And they're asking the Supreme Court to reinterpret it in a different manner, saying just because you're born here doesn't make you a citizen. It could be a very far-reaching effect. Because if you think about it, if the Supreme Court rules in favor of the Trump administration, that's forever. Long after President Trump is gone, the executive order becomes kind of meaningless because now the Supreme Court has spoken. And barring a different Supreme Court coming in and reversing it, that ruling, if they interpret it that way, could last forever. So you could have people here with parents who are on a student visa, they're born here. Under this executive order, under this interpretation, they would not be citizens. So it's something that really needs to be watched. How's it going to go? I don't know.
Yeah, and it has a lot of wide reaching implications that you just mentioned. Thank you so much, as always, Matt, for joining us. And if you have a legal question that you would like Matt to answer for you, please email us at breakingdownthelaw@news3lv.com.